Welcome. Let's jump right into an absolutely fascinating theological explainer today, one that fundamentally challenges a rigid historical binary that we've been living with for roughly 2,000 years. Whether you're deeply versed in theology or you just love seeing how complex historical ideas evolve over time, this is such a fresh lens. We're going to examine a source text that outlines a highly nuanced synthesis. It's essentially a theological third way between Judaism and Christianity.
For centuries, history has basically forced us into a pretty strict dichotomy regarding the historical and spiritual nature of Jesus of Nazareth. The question always seems to be, was he a false prophet or the final Messiah? But are those really our only two options? The source text for analyzing today asks us to pause and seriously reconsider if this either-or framework has just artificially limited our understanding all this time. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, the great historical crossroads. Second, a new third way. Third, the analogy of the road. Fourth, right but partial. And finally, the final fulfillment.
Let's start with Section 1, the great historical crossroads.
Before we can even look at a new proposal, we really have to understand the foundational divide. It's like looking at two completely separate walled cities. On one side, we have the traditional Jewish position, Jesus is not the Messiah, and the definitive Messiah is a figure who is still yet to come. Then, on the other side, the traditional Christian position, Jesus is the definitive, ultimate Messiah, and absolutely no other will come. Historically, these have been viewed as mutually exclusive, absolute positions. You're either on one side of the wall or the other. And our source material recognizes this deep entrenchment as the necessary starting point for its entirely new proposal.
Moving on to Section 2, a new third way.
Now this third way we're talking about, it isn't just some polite compromise where everyone agrees to disagree. It is a completely distinct theological framework. It proposes that Jesus is a real, deeply significant stage in the divine plan. And interestingly, the source specifically includes his resurrection as part of this acknowledged stage. But here is the absolutely critical pivot. While Jesus is viewed as a monumental stage, he's not the ultimate fulfillment. This synthesis acknowledges his massive historical and spiritual significance without declaring it the final completion of the story.
Which brings us to Section 3, the analogy of the road.
To really wrap our heads around this complex third way between Judaism and Christianity, the author uses some incredibly clear analogies. Think of it like a journey. Step 1 is the spark. In this model, Jesus is viewed as the extraordinary apocalyptic prophet who lit that initial spark. Step 2 is the open road. By his actions, he inaugurated the kingdom, effectively opening a fundamental road. He is a totally legitimate, crucial stage of the journey. But then we have Step 3, the ultimate fulfillment, because, you can open a road without being the one who actually reaches the final destination. In this third way, the ultimate completion of the journey is strictly reserved for a future figure. It's a clear analogy that perfectly captures how you can honor the immense importance of how a process begins, without confusing it with the end.
Section 4, right but partial.
So how does this narrative re-evaluate things? Well, it looks at the traditional Jewish perspective and considers it right on one hand, but partial on the other. It's right and waiting for a distinct future Messiah, an eschatological figure who is yet to come. However, it's considered partial in not recognizing Jesus as an authentic, legitimate part of the process leading up to that future Messiah. It's a really fascinating separation of concepts, right? It affirms the ultimate expectation while gently challenging the historical dismissal of the preceding stage. And finally, Section 5, the final fulfillment.
The text is super explicit here. The final destination, that ultimate fulfillment, belongs to a completely distinct future figure. The source describes this figure as the final Davidic Messiah, the Son of Man, whose role is to bring about the visible completion of the kingdom of God. So the spark was lit, the road was opened, but the visible, absolute completion remains a future distinct event. This all builds to a core thesis directly from our source, an extraordinary apocalyptic prophet who inaugurated the kingdom, lit the spark, and opened a fundamental road. This quote really highlights the profound respect this model has for the initial stage. It elevates Jesus as an extraordinary, foundational catalyst, the essential spark, while strictly maintaining that theological separation from the final completion. We started this explainer looking at two mutually exclusive walls, but by embracing these clear analogies, like the analogy of the road, a third way that validates both the spark of the past and the fulfillment of the future, we are left with a massive, provocative question. How might this framework completely reshape centuries of interfaith dialogue? Could recognizing a process as legitimate, even if it isn't final,
unlock totally new understandings between these ancient traditions. It's a powerful thought to leave you with. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey today, and keep asking those big questions.